I'm very happy to be here to present this small paper about the relevance of ashram life. Saccidananda Ashram has completed 50 years of its existence and service. This Golden Jubilee year is celebrated today in a solemn way, in a manner worthy of this institution. Today we remember the history of this ashram, the inmates of the ashram and their apostolate for the mission in the past 50 years. And in this context, we may think of the relevance of such an ashram. And to me, the relevance of such an ashram is very clear from the encyclical, the recent encyclical of Pope Francis, Fratelli, Tutti. And I would like to see how the ideals of the ashram are reflected in this encyclical. Let us look to the past. In the past years, we have the first name that comes to our mind is Swami Premananda or Prem, the founder of the ashram in 1971. Then we remember Swami Amaladas, who came from Shantivanam Ashram to lead the ashram after Swami Premanand. Now we have the Acharya of the ashram in Trichy here amidst us. Then I also remember Bishop Theophane Tanikunel, with whom I had good contact, and he was ardently promoting this institution because that was also his vision. He shared its ideals very much. After the CMI congregation took over the ashram in 1990, Father Swami Sadananda CMI came to the scene. Swami Sadananda's life and works in the ashram and his involvement in the social and religious matters in Narasimhapur forms a major part of the history of Saccidananda Ashram in the past 50 years. I'd say as long as Father Swami Sadananda here lived, he was very much involved in Narasimhapur, the life of Narasimhapur, in interreligious dialogue, also in social involvement. In various ways he has been part of this city, and he was the life of this ashram for those years when he lived here. In this Jubilee year, we appreciate the ashram's contribution in the development of an Indian Christian spirituality. I would like to summarize the goal and purpose of such an ashram as the development of an Indian Christian spirituality. It is visible in the lifestyle, in the environment, in the various activities, and above all, in the worship. At the same time, we also consider the relevance of such an ashram and its values today. We know the ashram movement began in a very powerful manner with the encouragement of the Vatican II Council, which took place more than 60 years ago. As we know, the necessity of an Indian Christian spirituality was discussed in India very fervently after the Second Vatican Council. Hence, behind the foundation of this ashram too, there was the influence of the Vatican Council. The Vatican Council in its various documents expressed a new self-understanding of the Church in the modern world. How can the Church exist and grow in the changing times? That was the concern of one of the concerns of the Vatican Council. Among many of its findings, one was the need of a positive approach to the cultures and religions of the world. In tune with the Vatican Council's teaching, the Church in India realized the need of becoming a church rooted in the Indian cultural and religious context. We had the All India Seminar in Bangalore, very famous, and there were many talks in the All India Seminar about the need of an Indian Christian spirituality. From various areas, people came and they presented their views. of an Indian Christian spirituality. It has to be developed through inculturation and interreligious dialogue. Saccidananda Ashram fulfills the historic necessity for the growth of an authentic Christian faith in India. Some may now raise the question, what is an Indian Christian spirituality? Why do we qualify Christian spirituality with a prefix Indian? Is not Christian spirituality in itself complete and sufficient? While we celebrate the Jubilee of this ashram, it is opportune to reflect for a while on the Indianness of Christian spirituality. It is a fact that spirituality has a universal character. Its validity is not for any particular culture or place, because it is the work of the Holy Spirit. We can ideally think of a spirituality which is not embodied, bound or committed to a context. It's an ideal concept of a spirituality where it has no commitment, where it has not bounded to a particular culture or place. But it does not mean that it exists in reality as an abstract ideology or notion. It is to be expressed in concrete forms or real lives. It has to evolve in history. Spirituality also evolves in history. So we should give space for the evolution of the Holy Spirit working in history. Spirit needs matter to reveal and to express itself. We do not see the wind. In the same way, we do not see the Spirit. But when the wind blows, you see not the wind, but the effects of the wind in nature. The trees moving, flags fluttering, and air howling. All these are effects of the wind, physical effects of the spiritual thing. Christian spirituality is embodied in Jesus Christ. We qualify the word spirituality with the adjective Christian because it is the spirituality embodied in Jesus Christ. Spirituality that has taken a body in Jesus Christ. Spirituality has received a specific body, flesh and blood, in the person of Jesus Christ. We recognize this spirituality in His works, words and actions. When we see, believe and follow Christ, we practice Christian spirituality. We know that Jesus Christ lived and worked in the Jewish culture. But His mission surpasses His Jewish historical background. It has a still wider, broader and deeper destiny or goal. Even though Jesus lived in the Jewish culture and practiced the work of the Spirit or lived the Spirit in His context, His mission that transcends His particular Jewish culture. It has a still wider, broader and deeper destiny or goal. It reaches out to the entire humanity, not only humanity, but the entire creation. It is evident in the missionary mandate given by Jesus to His disciples. Go into the entire world and preach the gospel to the whole creation. Here comes the relevance and need of an Indian Christian spirituality. The mission has to be extended also in different parts of the world, also in India. The spirituality of Jesus needs to be unfolded, unveiled and revealed in the entire creation. All the diverse creatures and cultures have to unfold themselves from within to express Jesus Christ and His gospel. This unfolding process is very important in our mission. Mission has to grow from within. It should expand from within to outward. It is not something imposed from outside. So all cultures, all religions and all people, they have to find their fulfillment, their unfolding, their flowering of the Spirit in their particular culture and their particular context. According to Saint Justin, the famous father of the church, every culture is like a germinating divine word, a divine logos. So every culture has got the logos within it. and the Logos is germinating. That famous expression of Saint Justin. This has been also taken up by the popes in recent times. We know when Pope Paul VI visited Mumbai in 1964, he sang the Upanishadic hymn, Upanishadic verse from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. By singing this verse, the Holy Father was not attempting to add something new to Christian faith. Instead, he was discovering, he was finding the unfolding. He was discovering the gospel message hidden in the verse of the prayer. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth and life. And the Upanishad prays, lead me from falsehood to truth. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. And the prayer of the Upanishad is, lead me from darkness to light. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and life. And the prayer is, lead me from death to immortality. So we can find the truth of Jesus Christ is already hidden in the Indian culture. And what is needed for our inculturation is unfolding of that truth of Jesus in our own culture. And we can find a cultural integration, cultural harmony, because we are not against anybody, we are not opposed to anybody, but we are only finding the fullness, our own fullness in our own culture. Pope Paul VI demonstrated that the Indian soul and its aspiration are not alien to Jesus Christ. It is our mission in India to enable the unfolding and blossoming of our Indian soil. Pope John Paul II has spoken about the intimate relationship between culture and Christian faith. According to him, a faith that does not become culture is not fully accepted, not entirely thought out, not faithfully lived. Faith has to become a way of life. These are the words of Pope John Paul II. It means that in India, Christian faith has to be accepted, reflected upon and lived, so that it becomes an Indian way of life. Faith becomes a way of life means that it becomes the life process of a community and its integral growth. It should qualify the community. It should give a new spirit to the community in India, that the Christian faith finds its fuller growth in our own culture, in our own context. It's an emergence from within. It takes place by the thrust of the life force, the Holy Spirit. The Spirit is working everywhere, and that Spirit's life force should reveal itself in our words and in our actions and in our culture. It is totally different from a syncretic process. Syncretism is assembling together various things and for it into a physical unity. Unfolding, on the other hand, consists in the evolution of a genius, a spirit manifesting the cultural, intellectual and emotional values of a people, a society, a country. We can compare it to a lotus flower, spreading its petals by an inner thrust. A lotus flower blooms. That life force comes from within. We cannot forcefully unfold a lotus flower, but its force should come from within, and it unfolds beautifully. Saccidananda Ashram has been showing the efforts of such a process of unfolding in its history of 50 years, beginning from 1971, with the life witness of Father Premanand Prem till this day, through the work and lifestyle of Father Anto Mundamani, the Acharya of the present times. In the history of this ashram, we have the illustrious example of Swami Sadananda. His life is an example of an authentic Indian Christian ashram spirituality. If we apply the words of Pope John Paul II to Swami Sadananda, we can say that in his life, Christian faith became Indian culture, fully accepted, entirely thought out, and faithfully lived. All those who have seen Swami Sadananda and his lifestyle are fully convinced about it. His life and activities were reinterpretations of the gospel values in an Indian cultural and religious context. We know that Indian culture is not a single culture. As there are many Indian languages and dialects, so there are many cultures in India. How did Swami Sadananda confront this situation in this ashram? Swami Sadananda's approach was to be sensitive to the different cultural contexts. In other words, his approach was a human approach rather than a cultural approach. He was guided by his sensitivity to human conditions. It was the basis of his genuineness and credibility. People in and around Narsinghpur recognized it. Even when he professed his faith as a Catholic priest wearing Indian ascetic clothes, people in Narsinghpur found no contradiction in his life. He was welcomed in all religious, cultural and social circles. The life of Swami Sadananda and the other inmates of the Saccidananda Ashram gives us a glimpse into the ideals of ashram life according to the gospel values. An ashram like the Saccidananda Ashram embodies the values such as simplicity, austerity, generosity, hospitality, kindness, reconciliation, peace, healing and sensitivity to the environment, nature and life. An ashram is the ideal space for living, practicing and experiencing these values. When we speak of a space, we should not think in terms of its boundaries. That is the way we always think. For us, often a space is that which contains things, but the ashram space is of a spiritual space which is known by its dynamic, creative center. It is different from a material space or area which is measured and delimited by its boundaries. The ashram space is a space of communion. The energy working in its it is very powerful at its center, holding everything together in unity. It is also a space for communion. It draws all to it, making a home for all. It realizes the ideal of a world family. Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. It's a phrase of which, from the Maha Upanishad, this world view which expresses an authentic Indian mentality, emphasizes the notion earth as the single home for all. It's a verse of wisdom very much relevant in today's world, where the sense of belonging to a single human family is fading. Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. The entire meaning of the encyclical of Pope Francis, Fratelli, Tutti, is expressed in this phrase. The encyclical derives its conclusions from the assumption that all of us are brothers and sisters and we belong to one family. In the introduction to the encyclical, Pope Francis invites us to dream with him. And what is that dream? Let us dream then as a single human family, as fellow travelers sharing the same flesh, as children of the same earth, which is our common home, each of us bringing the richness of his or her beliefs and convictions, each of us with his or her own voice, brothers and sisters all. That is the dream of Pope Francis when he speaks, when he presents the encyclical Fratelli Tutti. And this, we can read from that, it belongs to the whole world. So our openness to the whole world, we are not parochial, we are not to a particular place or particular culture. Even though we practice that culture, it has to be open to the whole world. But the dream of a single human family is at the verge of shattering. This is the realization which Pope Francis makes in his encyclical. There are various reasons why this vision is not realized, or it is difficult to realize, because there are so many elements which threaten us to shatter this vision. There are many dark clouds in the horizon. They threaten to spoil the dream. They are worldwide exploitation, oppression, marginalization, extremist thinking, decline in family values, and host of other evils. Along with these, the Pope enumerates new forms of poverty amidst wealth, inequality, and violation of human rights of the elderly, women, and children. So these are the dark clouds which shows us, and we have to overcome these dark clouds and bring in light. Pope Francis also points out that the growing consumerist culture is a great hindrance to the way of making the world a common home of fraternal love. At the root of consumerism is also individualism. So Pope Francis has pointed out these dark clouds, and he is pointing out the way to have a world family. The world is in need of developing a culture of hospitality. See, this is a specific quality of an ashram, of a welcoming attitude. All those who come to the ashram are welcome. It means the readiness to rise beyond the walls of self-centeredness and to encounter even those who are outside our own circles, who are considered as strangers. This has been an ancient monastic tradition in Christianity. Saint Benedict insisted that the poor and the pilgrims to be treated with the utmost care and attention. Pope Francis has taken as the theme of the encyclical the narration of the Good Samaritan by Jesus. The attitude of a priest and the Levite show their insensitivity, even though the wounded man is a fellow Jew. But a Samaritan, a foreigner, shows pity towards him and takes care of him. In fact, he proved to be a neighbor or brother to the victim of the robbery. Pope Francis observes that this parable deals with an age-old problem of human relationships. It has to be traced to the origin of human history. Pope Francis mentions the words of Cain when he said, "Am I my brother's keeper?" And that shows the loss of the center of a holy space in the world. When he did not know his own brother, he negated his own brother. That space has lost, that paradise is lost. Pope Francis' effort is to awaken the world of universal aspiration for fraternity. The Church's role in this effort is to become a space with open doors by breaking down walls and building bridges of reconciliation. It must be a space for encounter and dialogue. As Christians, we have to develop a concept of the art of encounter, with everyone. When I read this, I remember the situations or the past experiences. I have been here for a short time, and then I have witnessed the work of Swami Sadananda, and from that experience I know it's literally Swami Sadananda has practiced this hospitality and his sensitivity to human need. And I think that's also continued till now. Also Father Mundamani, his openness to the other cultures and dialogue with others and all. No one is useless and no one is non-essential. Dialogue is a middle path between selfish indifference and violent protest. In this effort, Pope shows an inspiring model in St. Francis Assisi. In St. Francis Assisi, we discover the values of the gospel, which the world today is desperately in need of. Pope Francis writes in his encyclical, St. Francis heard the voice of God. He heard the voice of the poor. He heard the voice of the infirm, and he heard the voice of nature. He made of them a way of life. My desire is that the seed that St. Francis planted may grow in the hearts of many. And in fact, that is the seed we have to see developing in this space of Saccidananda Ashram. Sensitivity to everybody, to the sick and to the neglected, and sensitivity to nature. In the canticle, St. Francis sings, Laudato si, O Signore. Praised be you, O Lord, through our sister Mother Earth, who sustains us and directs us, bringing forth all kinds of fruits and colored flowers and herbs. St. Francis had a deep understanding of God's presence in everything. He saw traces of God in all creation. Everything spoke to him on God's glory. St. Thomas Celano, his biographer, writes that he saw dignity even in a worm and did not leave them to be trampled upon by others. I would like to come to the last portion of this presentation. The encyclical Fratelli, Tutti, all brothers, propose the vision of a new space of relationships, not only between the humans, but also between all creatures. They are brought to existence by the love of God and Creator. Such a space of ideal relationships is possible when we overcome the culture of war promoted by indifference, individualism, and consumerism. The space created by Saccidananda Ashram fulfills the conditions of the encyclical to foster harmony, peace, simplicity, compassion, and hospitality. It is also a space of healing and reconciliation. It invites all to return to their inner space through meditation, prayer, and self-awareness, and spiritual exercises. The ashram atmosphere draws the inmates closer to nature. The simplicity of the ashram lifestyle raised a serious challenge to the contemporary culture infected by materialism, consumerism, and utilitarianism. The spirit of this ashram is the spirit of the gospel itself. We need not have to think that here something is practiced which is not proper to the gospel, which is alien to the gospel. In fact, it is an effort to go deeper into that value, those values of the gospel. It is reconciliation and dialogue which Pope Francis envisages in the encyclical. It is not enough to come to visit this space. We have to carry with us the effects and the qualities of this space. The purpose of visiting this space, coming to Saccidananda Ashram and spending a few days here or a few months here, that is an effort to carry the same space within us and go to wherever we are to go, there carry the same space and there live the ashram. So in fact, this ashram space is extended by those who come and visit and experience it for a short or for a long time. Let us remember with gratitude once again all those who have animated, given life and energy to Saccidananda Ashram in the past 50 years in different capacities. May their spiritual power continue to sustain this ashram in the coming years.